All right. What is this? This is the second video. I'm reading the ninth part of The Color of Magic. I wonder why they left all this, he said. I don't know, said a polite voice in his head. He turned and looked up into the scaly horse face above him. What is your name, dragon? Said Two Flower. I don't know. I think I shall call you Nine Reeds. That is my name, then. They waded through all the encroaching dust in a series of huge, dark-pillared halls which had been carved out of the solid rock, with some cunning, too. From floor to ceiling, the walls were massive statues, gargoyles, bas-reliefs, and fluted columns that cast weirdly moving shadows when the dragon gave an obliging illumination at Two Flower's request. They crossed the lengthy galleries and vast carven amphitheaters, all awash with deep, soft dust and completely uninhabited. No one had come to these dead caverns in centuries. Why? Then he saw the path. Sorry, that why was mine. That's not in the book. Then he saw the path leading away into yet another dark tunnel mouth. Someone had been using it regularly and recently. It was a deep, narrow trail in the gray blanket. Two Flower followed it. It led through still more lofty halls and winding corridors quite big enough for a dragon. A dragons had come this way once, it seemed. There was a room full of rotting harness, dragon-sized, and another room containing plate and chainmail big enough for elephants. They ended in a pair of green bronze doors, each so high that they disappeared into the gloom. In front of Two Flower, at chest height, was a small handle shaped like a brass dragon. When he touched it, the door swung open instantly and with a disconcerting noiselessness. Instantly, sparks crackled in Two Flower's hair, and there was a sudden gust of hot, dry wind that didn't disturb the dust in any way that ordinary wind should, but instead whipped it up momentarily into unpleasantly half-living shapes before it settled again. In Two Flower's ears came the strange, shrill twittering of the things locked in the distant dungeon dimensions, out beyond the fragile lattice of time and space. Shadows appeared where there was nothing to cause them. The air buzzed like a hive. In short, there was a vast discharge of magic going on around them. The chamber beyond the door was lit by a pale green glow. Stacked around the walls, each on its own marble shelf, were tier upon tier of coffins. What the fuck? In the center of the room was a stone chair on a raised day, and it contained a slumped figure which did not move but said, in a brittle old voice, "Come in, young man." Two Flowers stepped... What did he just walk in on? Two Flowers stepped forward. The figure in the seat was human as far as he could make out in the murky light, but there was something about the awkward way it was sprawled in the chair that made him glad he couldn't see it any clearer. "I'm dead, you know," came a voice from what Two Flower fervently hoped was a head in conversational tones. "I expect you can tell." Said Two Flower. "Yes." He began to back away. "Obvious, isn't it?" agreed the voice. "You'd be Two Flower, wouldn't you? Or is that later?" "What? Later?" said Two Flower. "Later than what?" He stopped. "Well," said the voice, "you see, one of the advantages of being dead is that one is released from, as it were, from the bonds of time, and therefore I can see everything that has happened or will happen, all at the same time, except that, of course, I now know that time does not, for all practical purposes, exist." "That doesn't sound like a disadvantage," said Two Flower. "You don't think so? Imagine every moment being at one and the same time, a distant memory, and such a nasty surprise, and you'll see what I mean. Anyway, I now recall what it was I'm about to tell you. Or have I already done so? That's a fine-looking dragon, by the way. Or don't I say that yet?" "It is rather good. It just turned up," said Two Flower. "It turned up," said the voice. "You summoned it." Yes, well, all I did... You have the power!" All I did was think of it. That's what the power is. Have I already told you that I'm Gretchen the First? Or is that next? I'm sorry, I haven't had too much experience of transcendence." God, what the hell? Anyway, yes, the power. It summons dragons, you know. "I think you already told me that," said Two Flower. "Did I?" "I certainly intended to," said the dead man. "But how does it? I've been thinking about dragons all my life, but this is the first time one has turned up." Well, you see, the truth of the matter is that dragons have never existed as you, and until I was poisoned some 3 months ago, I understood existence. I'm talking about the true dragon, Draconis nobilis, you understand? The swamp dragon, Draconis vulgaris, is a base creature not worth our consideration. The true dragon, on the other hand, is a creature of such refinement of spirit that they can only take on form in this world if they are conceived by the most skilled imagination. That sounds like Two Flower. And even then, the said imagination must be in some place heavily impregnated with magic, which helps to weaken the walls between the world of the seen and the unseen. Then the dragons pop through here, as it were, and impress their form on this world's possibility matrix. I was very good at it when I was alive. I could imagine up to 500 dragons at a time. Now, Liesa... Oh, God! How did I not realize it was her father? How? How? I knew there was a... Oh, my God. Now, Liesa, the most skilled of my children, can barely imagine 50 rather nondescript creatures. So much for a progressive education. What the... She doesn't really believe in them. That's why her dragons are rather boring. While yours, said the voice of Gretcha, is almost as good as some of mine used to be. A sight for sore eyes, not that I have any to speak of now. Two Flowers said hurriedly, You keep saying you're dead. Well, the dead, they don't talk much, as a rule. I used to be an exceptionally powerful wizard. My daughter poisoned me, of course. It is the generally accepted method of secession in our family, but the corpse sighed, or at least the sigh came from the air a few feet above it. It soon became obvious that none of my 3 children is sufficiently powerful to wrest the lordship of the Wyrmberg from the other 2. A most unsatisfactory arrangement. A kingdom like ours has to have one ruler, so I resolved to remain alive in an unofficial capacity, which of course annoys them all immensely. I won't give my children the satisfaction of burying me until there is only one of them left to perform the ceremony. There was a nasty wheezing noise. Two Flower decided that it was meant to be a chuckle. So it was one of them that kidnapped us, said Two Flower. Liesa, said the dead wizard's voice, my daughter. Her power is strongest, you know. My son's dragons are incapable of flying more than a few miles before they fade. Fade? Oh! Well, I was wrong about that. 100% wrong about that. I did notice that we could see through the one that brought us here, said Two Flower. I thought that was a bit odd. Of course, said Gracia. The power only works near the Wyrmberg. It's the inverse square law, you know. At least I think it was. As the dragons fly further away, they begin to dwindle. God, I thought it was odd. I was kind of right. The idea of, how close they were to Wyrmberg. Otherwise, my little Liesa would be ruling the whole world by now, if I know anything about it. But I can see I mustn't keep you. I expect you'll be wanting to rescue your friend. Two Flower gaped. Run, he said. Not him. The skinny wizard. My son Leord is trying to hack him to pieces. I admire the way you rescued him. Will, I mean. Two Flower drew himself up to his full height. An easy task. Oh, 'cause he's short. Where is he said, heading toward the door with what he hoped was a heroic stride. Just follow the pathway in the dust, said the voice. Liesa comes to see me sometimes. She still comes to see her old dad, my little girl. She was the only one with the strength of character to murder me. That is a sentence that I thought I would never read ever. Oh my God. A chip off the old block. Good luck, by the way. I seem to recall I said that. We'll say it now, I mean. God, I love that scene. The rambling voice got lost in a maze of tenses as Two Flower ran along the dead tunnels, with the dragon loping along easily behind him. But soon he was leaning against a pillar, completely out of breath. It seemed ages since he'd had anything to eat. Why don't you fly? Said Nine Reeds inside his head. The dragon spread its wings and gave an experimental flap, which lifted it momentarily off the ground. Two Flower stared for a moment, then ran forward and clambered quickly onto the beast's neck. Soon they were airborne, the dragon skimming along easily a few feet from the floor and leaving a billowing cloud of dust in its wake. Two Flower hung on as best as he could, as Nine Reeds swooped through a succession of caverns and soared around a spiral staircase that could easily have accommodated a retreating army. At the top, they emerged into the more inhabited regions, the mirrors at every corridor or corner, brightly polished and reflecting a pale light. I smell other dragons. The wings became a blur, and Two Flower was jerked back as the dragon veered and sped off down a side corridor like a gnat-crazed swallow. Another sharp turn sent them soaring out of a tunnel mouth in the side of a vast cavern. There were rocks far below, and up above were broad shafts of light from great holes near the roof. A lot of activity on the ceiling, too. As Nine Reeds hovered, thumping the air with his wings, Two Flower peered up at the shapes of roosting beasts and tiny men-shaped dots that were somehow walking upside down. This is a roosting hall, said the dragon in a satisfied tone. As Two Flower watched, one of the shapes far above detached itself from the roof and began to grow larger. Oh, that's how he let go. God. Rincewind watched as Leord's pale face dropped away from him. This is funny, gibbered a small part of his mind. Why am I rising? Then he began to tumble in the air and reality took over. He was dropping to the distant, guano-speckled rocks. His brain reeled with the thought. The words of the spell picked just that moment to surface from the depths of his mind, as they always did in times of crisis. Why not say us, they seemed to urge. What have you got to lose? Rincewind waved a hand in the gathering slipstream. Ashonai, he called. The word formed... Oh my God, he's actually saying it! The word formed in front of him in a cold blue flame that streamed in the wind. He waved the other hand, drunk with terror and magic. Ibiris, he intoned. The sound froze into a flicking orange word that hung beside its companion. Urshoring, Kivanti, Pithin, Nigurad. Ferengomali. Oh yeah, okay. As the words blazed their rainbow colors around him, he flung his hands back and prepared to say the eighth and final word that would appear in coruscating octarine and seal the spell. The imminent rocks were forgotten. He began, then breath was knocked out of him. The spell scattered and snuffed out. Oh, God! What is... Ugh! Man, a pair of arms locked around his waist, and the whole world jerked sideways as the dragon rose out of its long dive, claws grazing for a moment the topmost rock on the Wormburg's noisome floor. Two-Flower laughed triumphantly. Got him! And the dragon, curving gracefully at the top of his flight, gave a lazy flip of his wings and soared through a cave mouth into the morning air. That was amazing. That was so good. Oh my God. Bless this book. All right, I am going to write about it because that was great. Then I get to read more.